One. Welcome into the Food City 500 edition of the Wedge Adjustment NASCAR DFS show. I'm your host, Josh Neal. You can follow me on Twitter at RotoRacer. I'm joined alongside, as always, by PJ Frappier. You can follow him on Twitter at PJFrapDFS. And this week, we're excited to be joined by one of the top fantasy NASCAR minds in the business. Fantasy NASCAR minds DFS dashes on Michael Willer. You otherwise known as Wills on Twitter. You can follow him on Twitter at DKWills. So I figured I would start out by letting Wills talk about the new product coming out, the DFS Dash. I can say from personal experience, I have a subscription over there for the NASCAR. The roster generator is a big thing for me. I love it, but I'm going to let Wills talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you guys having me on. I appreciate you touting the new site. It's pretty much brand new. We just started really putting it together over the last 2 months, and glad to get you in there, get some other people in there playing around. This week we actually brought in a guest expert, Matt Willis. So that was pretty cool. Yeah, but it's definitely it's different. It's unique. It's a new way of bringing information to users. Basically trying to let us do the thinking. Let us, and if you don't have time, when it comes like MLB and stuff, I used to be huge on MLB. Then kids happen, work happens, all that fun stuff. So you just can't put as much time as you want into it. So the goal with the Dash is, to be able to let us do a lot of the work, let us keep it high level, and then you can deep dive and do all that fun stuff too, and you still make all your own decisions. But yeah, so at the end of the day, we love the product, we love the vision, we love where it's going, and the roster gen, as you talked about, is another big key to this, pushing this out there. There's multiple ways of getting exposure to multiple different sports, but yeah, we've definitely get over there and check it out. We've got ways of tagging different drivers. So if you want to build 150 lineups and you're afraid that you're not going to have 2 dominators or 3 dominators in said lineup, something along those types of lines, we've got that flexibility built into our generator so that you can nail that down. So you can put however many movers you want, how many dominators you want, how many value guys, etc. But yeah, definitely thanks for the introduction, and glad to be part of the show.
Yeah, and like I said, I've been using that roster generator for the past couple of weeks, and it's definitely helped me as a player. So excuse me, it's been a rough day. I've been at the racetrack, battling the rain, but I'm glad to be here. We'll start out by talking about the weather. That's going to be a huge factor. I know today start and stop a little bit there in the Xfinity race, but for the most part, from a local guy's perspective, the weather is overestimated around here. The forecast will say this, and the weather will do this. So for me, I see the 10% chance of, any race activity. For me, I think we can increase that a little bit. I'm not taking anything away from those guys, weather guys. But for me, I think we could see some racing. I don't think we will definitely complete a race. I don't think we'll get halfway, but I do think we'll see some laps, hopefully. I'm going to knock on wood on that. But for you guys, how does weather affect NASCAR DFS?
Well, I mean, like for me, if the race is going to be cut short, to me, it puts less of an emphasis on the dominators, and you're going to want more place differential, and you can be more contrarian, I think, in your lineups, because like last year when Buescher won at Pocono, who would have ever known that the rain is going to stop the race? It's random. It's so hard to tell, though. Are you going to get 400 laps? Are you going to get 450? Are you going to get 300? So it's tough. I think it is a good week, though, to overall go a little bit more off the board, just for the pure fact that it could end at any point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm personally not putting a lot of stock into it just because there's lights.
Yeah.
If I knew it was going to be a night race, I'd put more stock into it. But it sounds like the rain is just as questionable at night as it is during the day, because there's definitely some day-night differences in some of the players or drivers. But I'm not putting any stock into it, just simply because we really don't know what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah. So let's move on. This race is broken down into 3 segments. The first segment is 125. The second segment is 125. And the last segment, which is half the race, is 250 laps. So this week, like PJ was starting to talk about, how do you want to construct your lineups? Personally, I want to get as many dominators as I can. And that could cause a problem with salary. So how do you guys plan on constructing your lineups?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably looking to go 2 or 3 dominators, like you were talking about. There are a couple guys that you can go cheap. I think they kind of, to me, they mispriced Stenhouse this week, and I know he wrecked a little bit in practice and all that, but he's a cheap guy that you can get in. Matt Benedetto, great year here last year, and it's a short track race, so a lot of different things can happen, and it's a cheap way to get in, possibly 3 elite dominators. That's just basically how I'm going to go. I mean, and then you got Kenseth, that's starting, I believe, 22nd. That's another guy who's really good here. So there's going to be some place differential guys, and you're just going to have to nail the dominators, though.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it comes down to nailing 2 dominators. You're going to have one guy that dominates above and beyond the rest, and then I think there's Kyle Larson. Really, though, I broke it down into scoring from position all the way back to 2006 when they started loop data, and P1 scores on average 22 points more than any other position in the history of loop data, if you will. Right. So, I mean, I'm not going to I say I'm not going to overthink it, but I am, because there's the competition caution. Does he get shuffled out in the beginning? But back to my point. P1 is 22 points more than any other position, and then on average, over the last 10 races or so, the DK number 1 scorer is scored 20 plus points more than any other position. So to me, it tells me I've got to lock in the pole position, and I've got to lock in 1 dominator. If I get those 2 right, then I think I'll be sitting pretty good.
Yeah, great point there. So let's move on. This week we're going to do things a little bit different than what we normally do. We're going to break it down into salary ranges. Just to go over it a little bit, we're going to do the 5,900 to the 4,500 salary first. We'll start that. In a second, we'll go from there to the 6,100 to 7,000 range. We'll go 7,100 to 8,000, and then we'll go to 8,200 to 9,100. And finally, we'll have our high price guys, 9,400 to 10,600. That'll be what we'll end the show with. But first, let's start out with the punts, so-called. I'm going to go ahead and start out. We could debate this a little bit. I got a feeling we will. But there's a guy starting 38th. I did this a couple weeks ago with this, and I think a lot of other people did too. But Timmy Heal's 4,900. And if you're going to play some GPP lineups this week, I know a lot of people are not going to be high on him. But for me, he's 4,900. He starts 38th, and this is Bristol. So there could be wrecks. He came in 33rd last week at Martinsville, which not too good, but there was a lot of wrecks. He did benefit from that. But 4,900, and if you want 3 dominators in a GPP lineup, like I'm probably going to have some, I think he's not a good play. I can't call him a good play. He's a risk. He's a very high risk. But, if things work out, he comes in 32nd from 38th. I think he'll do just enough. And hopefully you got to hit your dominators like Wills was talking about. So for me, I'm not going to have high exposure to him. I'm not recommending you do this. But I think you can take a flyer on him. For a guy like me, that's playing 5 lineups, probably 10 lineups, I'd have him in 1 or 2 just to say I have him and have, like I said, try to get your 3 dominators, 2 dominators, whatever you're feeling this week. So, PJ, who are you looking at in that range?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose I'll go the chalky way and just go with Matt DiBenedetto that I mentioned earlier. Last year, I think he was 17th and 6th tier, starting far enough back, 32nd. Obviously, qualifying rained out. He's going to be the highest owned that he's probably going to be all year until they get back to Bristol the next time. But I think it's something that you can, if you're entering multiple lineups, I mean, even he's probably going to end up in my cash game, to be honest with you. But if you're entering multiple lineups, I'd probably go with about the field. I'm guessing he's, 25 to 35%. And I'm going to be curious of that number, though, because that's really going to give, I guess, a better idea of, like, how knowledgeable that the public is getting and how NASCAR has come as a whole, like, if people do grasp onto this. So I'm definitely going to be curious of his ownership, and I'll probably have my fair share.
Yeah, for sure. I'm with you on the DiBenedetto pick. I don't think he'll be that high on. I think we'll be surprised, and I mainly say that because there's a ton of value in the 7K range this week. But as far as other punts in that range, I'm really not looking anywhere else. But if I mass enter, and I'm going to, I'm probably going to have a couple Jeffrey Earnhardts, a couple guys like that. Just more so attrition than anything else. See if those guys can move forward a little bit and see if it helps me round out the rest of my team. Because if you nail those 2 dominators, then that's going to be key at the end of the day.
All right, let's move on to the next range, 6,100 to 7,000. There's a couple guys in here that I like. I'm sure you guys like as well. I just want to start out talking. I don't know if you guys are high on Danica Patrick this week. I know some people I've seen do like her quite a bit. But for me, in GPPs, I'm going to pivot to David Reagan at 6,100. I don't think he's going to have too much high ownership at all. He's done fairly well at Bristol. He's had some bad luck and some wrecks, but he's pretty solid. I think, he's starting 33rd. I think he can get near 20th. That's excellent value. At 6,100, he's not too expensive. He's probably a little bit more expensive than I would like for his car, and I don't think he's been too happy with his car in practice, but this is just a track where you have to keep your car in one piece, and that's so hard to do. But I feel like people look at Danica Patrick right there, and I don't think anyone's going to be looking at David Reagan. So that's one of my guys in this range. I'll go to you, Wills, next for one of your guys.
Danica definitely intrigues me this week, and I will have some of her. I think Stuart Haas is in a good position this week to do well, and she may be the weak link of the group as she always is, but she's starting P29, so I definitely do like her. But I'm going to actually go with Chris Buescher. I think this is I think it's going to be a play that you can get at very low ownership this week. He was highly owned, 2 weeks ago. He's been underpriced. His price jumped. He wrecked his car. He's going to a backup. He's starting P27. I mean, between the price jumping, him going to a backup car, starting at the rear, I think he's going to kind of go overlooked. And, it's not like P40 is that much different than P27, as long as he's getting around those slow cars fast enough before it starts getting too many laps down. But he's going to be one of my contrarian plays this weekend.
That's a great play. BJ, who do you got?
Yeah, it's going to be the first time this year that I think we can really, really play him, and is Daniel Suarez. Pretty elite practice speeds. He was good here in the Xfinity car. JGR as a whole is good here, obviously with Kyle Busch. Edwards was good here in the same equipment. I just think, A lot of people are so scared to play him because it's such a risk, obviously. We saw our struggles at Martinsville. This is a different beast. He's actually been here, had laps here where Martinsville, he was a complete fish out of water. So that's definitely where I'm going to go in this range, and I'm probably going to have more than the field on Suarez.
Yeah, and to your point, he was. If you watched the Xfinity race today, he was up there. He almost took the lead at one point from Larson and Blaney. So I think he locks this track, and once that high line gets kicking, I think he's going to be one of the guys that benefit from that. Another guy I like in this range, and I think I'm not sure where his ownership will be, but the hometown guy, Trevor Bayne. There's some conflict here because I've talked to a couple people and they don't know what to do with him. Some people think he's starting too high at 12th. For me, he's had top 15s in the last 3 races. It's kind of like, what do you want from him? Do you want a top 5? Do you want a top 10? Or do you want a guy that's just going to stay around 12th? I think he's definitely a GPP play. I would not play him in cash. Do not do that. I'm conflicted on him, but I think he can jump in the top 10 and do some damage. It's his home track, like I said, and he's kind of cheap. So he's one of the other guys I'm looking at. You guys got any more in this range you would like to talk about?
I mean, I think some people will go to Austin Dillon. I don't have a whole lot of interest. I'm really just focusing on Suarez here. I'm sorry. Austin Dillon is the next range. Sorry. That's my fault. I'm looking at this. I really don't have anybody else. Ty Dillon was the one in this range, but I'm not for me.
I would say Menard and Allmendinger for me.
Yeah, I like Menard as well. All right, let's move on to the next range, 7,100 to 8,000. There's a guy there at 7,100, Ricky Stenhouse. He's had some kind of week so far. He was out there beating and banging on his car, trying to help it get repaired. I was watching him in practice today. He looked like he was loose everywhere. I'm not sure what to think of him. I'm going to go ahead and talk about Casey Kane at 7,600. For me, he's best 10-lap average. He was probably top 10 in the others. Fox didn't give us the 20-lap and 30-lap averages like we was hoping they would, but he's due. He's kind of like the Danica Patrick of Hendrick Motorsports. He's there. He doesn't quite perform up to the car, but he loves this track. He won the spring race a couple of years ago, so he's very happy to see this track. He likes his car, and he looks like, other than Jimmy Johnson, he looks like the best Hendrick car this week. So I think, you got to plug him in here. He's a great cash option, good GPP play. I don't think a lot of people will be on him like they should be. So this is one of the situations you might want to go overweight on a racer. Yeah, that's about all I got for him. PJ, who do you have in this range?
Yeah, I'm actually going to go with Kurt Busch. He's really good here, and he has been really good here since the beginning of his career. Starting 15th, he's kind of going to get, in my opinion, lost in the shuffle. But the price point, I mean, that is far too cheap for a guy that is that good here. And, kind of like Wills was saying, Stuart Haas, that I think they have a great shot. They have kind of figured it out. I just really, really like Kurt Busch today. It's like top 5 track history, dating all the way back to when he was in the 97 Sharpie car when he was winning here when we were younger. So that's definitely going to be the focus for me. I will be quite a bit over the field on Kurt Busch.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are going to look at his recent finishes, and that's going to scare a lot of people away because he hasn't had luck. This has not been his season so far. So, like you said, this is going to be a bounce back moment for him, I would think.
Yeah, for sure. I can't go wrong with – honestly, you can't go wrong with anybody in this price range. The 7K price range, like I'm going to have tons of exposure for my Mass Center. If I had to pick one guy out, I'm definitely going to be a high-end Ricky. I'm definitely going to be probably overweight on Kurt. but Eric Jones is the one that I'm going to be hammering. Rodney Childers tweeted out tonight, if you're playing fantasy, get Eric Jones in your lineup. I mean, when you got crew chiefs, they're talking about plugging other players or other drivers into a line for fantasy that they don't even play.
You better listen.
I mean, just take the advice. And then he goes off and wins today, So, he's definitely overperforming from my expectations coming into this year. He's not just he doesn't seem like a boom or bust type of guy like I thought he was going to be. He's consistently running well, and I actually think that he's been running much better than his finishes even. So yeah, I think this guy's got a pretty big ceiling.
Yeah, and he drove the wheels off that thing today. He had to go back in the back. I think it was a pit road speeding penalty or something. I didn't get to watch it and get the reason, but he drove it up through the field, and he obviously shoved Blaney out of the way, but I think he did have a better car than Blaney at the end. So that does it for that range. Let's move on to the 8,200 to 9,100. There's obviously only 5 drivers in this, so probably not going to spend too much time, but there is some intriguing plays in here. For me, if I had to pick one driver in this range, other than Matt Kenseth, because I'm sure Matt Kenseth, you got to have him, I would think. He's a center block to your lineup. For me, I think Denny Hamlin's going to be a great GPP play. I think, if you do not play Kenseth, which you probably should, but if you want to fade Kenseth and you have Junior, I think he's a great pivot from those two. There is some, questions with what's going on with Denny Hamlin this year. He did have a throttle issue, I think, in practice, so that does concern me a little bit, but I think they'll be good to go. And I don't think a lot of people are going to be on him like they should. He's starting 16th. I think, he's great. He has great track history at Bristol. Obviously, you don't have as many wins as some of the other guys, but he is a short track guy, and I think he'll be just fine. I think top 10 is likely. Top 5, he has that possibility. So I think he's a great GPP play, and I think when you're at this price range, more people are going to be on Junior and Kenseth. So that's where I'm probably going to head to in GPPs, but I'm obviously going to have Kenseth too. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to stick with the Stuart Haas plays in here, and I think Clint Boyer might go a little bit overlooked. He is starting pretty high up, but again, he had really good practice speeds. He's another guy who prior to these last couple of years, back when he was with RCR, was good here. And again, he's in good equipment. He's in a good state of mind for him, and he's been solid. So you don't necessarily need, obviously to have an elite day would be a top 3 finish. I would say an actual top 3 finish would be an elite day. I don't think you necessarily need that for him to be in a winning GPP lineup. I think if he can sneak into the top 5, great. But even if he just runs anywhere in the top 10, that's what you're looking for. And he's been solid enough this year that I think you can come to expect that. The equipment is that good, and he's back in a happy place, and he can drive the wheels off the car. And it's good to see him back, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be Dale Earnhardt Jr. In this price range, there's nobody that I see leading any laps tomorrow or Monday. And Dale Earnhardt Jr. is never a sexy play by any means, but he's only a play when he does terrible qualifying. And this year, obviously, he hasn't had a great year. He's starting P20 from the rainout. I just think that getting, Kenseth and Junior, if you can get those two together, I really haven't played too much with lineups yet. I've got lots of lineups to build. I'm not sure if you can fit, him, Larson, those two, Larson and the Dominator in, but that's something that I'll definitely be trying to play with.
Yeah, that's a good point too. So let's move to our final range. Very top heavy, obviously, but in this range, I'm probably going to do 2 drivers here. I'm going to start out with Jimmy Johnson. Normally, if I was doing Bristol, I would not think of Jimmy Johnson as one of the stronger plays. But at 9,700, and there's a couple other guys I think that'll be more highly owned, obviously. But he had the best 30-lap average. And, give or take, 30 laps is like 10 minutes, if that, at Bristol. So a lot of things can happen. Jimmy Johnson, he's going to start 11th. That range here in the past couple of weeks has been, a trigger point in fantasy DFS. So I think, that's where I'm going to go in this range. Where are you guys going to go?
I'm going to look actually for the contrarian dominator, and I'm going to go Chase Elliott here. I know it's going to be tough, obviously, beating Larson on the initial start. But if he does, I was happy to see, I believe it was 10th in the 10 lap, and he went out lap 39 to 48. So he went out later in the run, and he was still able to put down a top 10 lap. And I know all that stuff doesn't necessarily mean everything at these tracks. They're all going to be in traffic relatively quickly. So it's just going to be how the car handles. I know it's not a huge deal with Larson, wrecking a little bit in practice, but it's just enough where who's going to win the initial start. And we've seen the pole sitter and the outside pole sitter combined to dominate races this year. Obviously, it's a risky play to play both guys in a lineup. But again, me by now. I like to kind of take a shot on the contrarian dominator, and let's go back to it this week.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to get caught with my pants down taking Chase this week, but I'm definitely making a play, and I'm going to be going the other way. But I completely understand the play, and it goes back to my overthinking statement from earlier. Does it get overtaken early from the competition caution? Maybe that is where Chase takes it. But for me, it's going to be Larson and or Kyle Busch and or Kevin Harvick.
Yeah. That's going to be the three guys right there, and Jimmy Johnson, which, that's kind of debated. But I'm with you, Wills. I think those three, that goes back to my Timmy Hill play. They'll definitely not be able to play Kenseth and Junior like I would like. But I think in one lineup you could do Kyle Busch, Kevin Harvick, and Larson, and, throw Timmy Hill in there. But that's going to leave you with some other guys you might not want to play. But I think we nailed it right there. You guys like Keselowski this week? I know he's struggling a little bit. What's your thoughts on him?
Not for me.
I'm not. I'll be underweight on the field for sure.
Yeah. Joey Logano?
I'm going to fade him.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one.
Yep.
Same with Truex.
Yeah. I'm kind of intrigued, Chase, like you was talking about, Chase Elliott. I don't know what to do with him. But I mean, like you said, you got to be contrarian sometimes.
I mean, yeah, I'm not saying to I won't have more of him than I will of Larson, but that majority of that ownership is going to go to Larson. Yeah. And if the shoe is on the other foot, I need at least a handful, of lineups to have the other foot on there. Because unfortunately, I wasn't able to really watch the Xfinity race, but from what you said, the restarts, the bottom was going to restarts, but then you kind of went to the top. So that just tells me that there's a small possibility. And again, I know it may be overthinking, but it could happen. And we'll see. It's going to be a green racetrack too, so we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So that brings us to our final segment. We normally do who wins and who has the most points. Wills, we'll start with you. Who is your pick to win the race?
I'm gonna go with Kyle Busch. I think that Gibbs has obviously been down. They've had 2 weeks off, and they're clearly struggling Kyle Busch has been the only one that's been actually showing decent speed this year. He's been close a couple different times, and we're heading to a track that he's just performed solidly at. And I think that I don't think that he's going to be as high owned as people think. His recent track history here has not been that great. He's crashed out in a couple of races. I just think that he's one of those guys that can get up front and lead a large portion of a race. And, I've been doing this since day one on DraftKings, and Kyle Busch is that guy that can just completely ruin somebody's week if you don't have him in your lineup. And he's done it, on a couple different occasions. And I think this is I don't want to say it's a sneaky time to get him in your lineup. I think it's a sneaky time to go way overweight on him and get him into your lineups.
And I'm going to go with Kyle Busch too. Like you said, he used to dominate this track. He's not had the past, history lot, but I think, last year he was leading. He was top 3 most of the race. Just some bad luck, gets caught up in some wrecks. Other than, his car looks great in practice. Best 20-lap average, best single lap. If it comes down to a restart, I want Kyle Busch over anybody in the field. Other than that, Wheels nailed every point that I was going to say. So, PJ, who do you have?
Yeah, for as much as I said about Chase Elliott, I'm going to just hedge myself, and I'm going to take Larson. Because with Dusty Green for a while, I mean, the outside is going to come in the longer, the race goes on. Hopefully we make it all 500 laps. That's where he lives. That's where he's comfortable. Being on the high side, it's just a perfect match, like, for him. And it is right up there with Michigan as one of his best tracks. So it's kind of hard not to take him this week for me. I mean, obviously you see the reasons why, Kyle Busch is a great play. And Wheels, I know you were saying probably overweight. Would you ever lock button him in this situation? Like, would you ever lock in a driver in all 150 of your laps?
Yes, but this won't be the week just because there's so many cautions and
Sure.
and the weather and everything else. So I would say between 50 and 75% though.
Sure.
All right. Who do you have scoring the most DK points? We'll start with you, Wills.
Well, that one's going to be easy. I'm going to stick with my same pick just because I think he's going to get up there. And we've all hit a Kyle as our race winner. And on my show earlier this week, I said I'm going to have a lot of Kyle stacks, and I do believe that those are going to be number 1, number 2, and then I think Harvick will be the third highest. But I don't think that the Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick lineups will be the play. I think that he's more of a hedge than anything else. I don't think them being paired together is going to be on the winning lineups.
Real quick, I'm going to go with – well, you go with Kyle Busch. I'm going to go with Kyle Larson. I don't want to steal the thunder, but I think it's going to be a Kyle. I'm just wondering, who's going to win the race. I think it's going to be a Kyle scoring the most points, and I think it's going to be a Kyle winning the race. I'll go with Kyle Larson on this one.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing more for me to add. I think if you seriously think that one of the Kyles is not going to have the highest points or the most realistic chance to win this race, like, I don't know. You're not crazy, obviously, because anything can happen again with the weather and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, you got to go one of those two.
Yeah. So that'll wrap it up, guys. Again, make sure to check out the DFS Dash. I highly recommend doing that. The roster generator is a must-have tool, I think, in DFS these days, and that they have a great platform. You got guys like Wills breaking down each driver, who they like, and as he said, you can break them down into the risky plays, the cash game plays, stuff like that. Make sure to go check it out. And we'd like to thank Wills one more time for joining us this week. It's phenomenal having you. We hope to have more guys like you. Hopefully we'll have you back sometime soon. That'll do it. PJ Frappier, Josh Neal, and Michael Willard. And make sure to subscribe and like the channel. It'll help us out. We're trying to grow. And good luck, guys.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.